As the co-host of American Pickers, Mike Wolfe has gained popularity among fans over the years. Wolfe had recently used the term, retirement, on social media. Wolfe also gave a startling clue about his planned retirement in style, leaving admirers to question what exactly he meant by this. Since 2010, Wolfe has starred on American Pickers. In an effort to find hidden riches, he and a co-host would tour the United States looking at antiques during the course of the show. Wolfe has also made his own business, antique archaeology, more well-known thanks to the show. But Wolfe recently shocked fans by discussing retirement in a new video. "Testing out retirement vehicles to get me around the flea market," is the description for a video that Wolfe posted on Instagram. Wolfe was hinting that when he ultimately retires, antiques will still play a role in his life. Generally speaking, a retirement vehicle is a plan, such as a Roth IRA or 401k plan, wherein an individual saves money for their eventual retirement from employment. The film, however, showed Wolfe riding about on a recumbent bicycle, so he took the concept a little more literally. Using pedal power, the American Pickers star moved the bike about and even did a donut with it. Wolfe added carbon footprint to the hashtags, expressing his appreciation for the bike's environmental friendliness. Wolfe's passion for motorcycles has been well known throughout the years. Prior to beginning his selection career, he even owned a few bike stores. He even revealed the incident that truly ignited his decades-long passion for motorcycles in an interview with Bicycling. "I saw all these bikes in the garbage one day while I was walking to school," Wolfe recalled at the time. "I was going crazy. That day, I didn't even attend school. I picked 'em up and carried 'em to my home's front yard. I told my mom I was going to open a bicycle shop when she got home. Her statement, 'If you're going to start bringing this stuff home, I won't park my car in the garage anymore, you can have the garage,' was the most brilliant thing she did. I began hauling a ton of bicycles home after she completely tossed gasoline on the fire." Fans asked Wolfe some questions after he recently shared. One reader specifically posed the question, "Out of all the picking you've done, what is one item you're still seeking for? What is something you still get excited about when you see it?" In response, Wolfe himself said, 1914 Black Hawk motorcycle. Viewers also expressed their feelings after seeing Wolfe riding a bike. Some mentioned that they would like to ride one of these bikes personally. Among the remarks were, "Excellent concept. Tell me how they operate and what you suggest. That drive mechanism is really awesome. Riding down a slope would be terrible for that task, and I ride fixed gear and say that. That's awesome to see." And so the Red Dragon Saw franchise came into being. A man gets hungry for some Subway after doing that kind of work. Love Wolfe's style in retirement. The late afternoon sunbeams slanting through the barn window's shattered panes caused the dust motes to dance. The subtle, metallic tang of time, the smell of old wood, and the dreams long since forgotten hung heavy in the air. Mike Wolfe rubbed his palm over the cold, smooth surface of an old-fashioned petrol pump, its enamel worn but its soul still intact, his familiar hat pulled low. His lips formed a sardonic grin. It was this, the final selection. Of course, it's not the last choice ever. Mike Wolfe was fundamentally a picker, a treasure hunter in a world full with untold tales. However, it was the camera's final choice. The last scene with the famous van, Frank, or more lately Robbie, driving through the dusty back roads, the opening credits, and the suspense that grows with every knock on a stranger's door. The host of American Pickers for more than 10 years, Mike Wolfe, was leaving the program. The news had shook the world of antiques and collectibles like a quake. There was a lot of conjecture, sincere remembrance, and a hint of melancholy on social media. Many people saw American Pickers as more than simply a reality program. It was a celebration of the underappreciated, a doorway into a world of hidden history, and evidence of the timeless appeal of nostalgia. And at the center of it all was Mike Wolfe, with his contagious energy, keen sense of a good bargain, and sincere bond with the folks whose riches he uncovered. However, Mike had no intention of slowing down in retirement. It has to do with changing gears. It was about exchanging the calm gratification of a lone quest for the continuous buzz of the production team. It was about spending more time on the show's driving passion, preserving American history, one rusted artifact at a time. He was also taking a luxurious retirement. The barn he was investigating now was no ordinary barn. It belonged to a renowned collector, a man who was only known as the Professor, and who was recognized among professional pickers for hoarding amazing, unopened collections. The Professor, a solitary Americana expert, had accumulated an incredible collection of items over the course of his life, including old advertisements, early cars, musical instruments, and military relics. Access to his collection was the ultimate goal for any picker, since he was a living legend. For years, Mike had been attempting to contact the Professor. Phone calls had gone unanswered, letters unanswered. The door had finally been opened by a fortuitous meeting at a small-town antique exhibition and a mutual admiration for an especially unique piece of advertising. Recognizing a kindred aficionado rather than merely a TV star, the Professor had made an unexpected invitation. And so here he was, encircled by a lifetime of history. The weight of it all filled the air. Sunlight lit the vivid colors of a fading carnival flag, sent long shadows across piles of leather-bound books, and captured the gleam of chrome on an abandoned motorbike. It was an incredible treasure trove and a picker's heaven. Mike was accompanied by Robbie, his brother and current co-star of the program, who had lost his typical easygoing manner in favor of a silent admiration. Even the seasoned camera crew appeared to move with a newfound reverence, whispering to one another instead of talking as they usually did. It was a goodbye, a final bow in a setting appropriate for the occasion, not simply another episode. "Professor," he began, his voice resonating a little in the large room, "this is amazing. Although I've heard tales, I never thought." A slight smile came from the face of the Professor, a slender guy with a shock of white hair and bespectacles. "It's a lifetime, a career of ghost chasing." Mike understood. There was a narrative behind every item in this barn, a ghost of the past clinging to its surface. Reviving those ghosts and telling their stories to the world was his work and passion. The pick started. There was no frantic, all-or-nothing rush. The investigation was thorough and almost reverent. Like archaeologists, Mike and Robbie went through the barn, closely inspecting every object as they looked for the telltale indications of age, legitimacy, and historical value. An immaculate pedal automobile from the early 20th century was there, its paint still astonishingly bright. A selection of old baseball cards, some of which show great players at the height of their abilities. A Victrola that has been exquisitely kept, its horn shining like a golden blossom. Every discovery was greeted by a silent scream of joy, a mutual nod of gratitude between Robbie and Mike. Mike was pulled to an assortment of antique signage leaning against the wall in a dusty area. He gently raised a big enameled sign for a motor oil brand that had long been forgotten. The typeface was strong and reminiscent of a bygone period, and the colors were rich. It was a stunning piece that exemplified early American advertising well. Mike replied, "This is fantastic, Professor," as he held out the placard for the camera to record. "The graphics are amazing." The Professor gave a nod. For 50 years, that one was displayed outside a garage in a remote area of Iowa. Many automobiles were seen coming and going. Mike could practically hear the clatter of tools, the roar of those motors, and the chatter between drivers and mechanics. The sign was a window to a bygone era, not merely a piece of metal. They discovered additional riches as they carried on exploring. An entire collection of vintage tools, all smoothed out by years of usage. An assortment of vintage images featuring people looking out from a vanished world. A child's wooden rocking horse, nonetheless charming and innocent despite its peeling paint. Just as distinctive as the collection itself were the negotiations with the Professor. He had no desire to bargain over every penny. His first priority was to ensure that his valuables were given to a person who would value their past and comprehend their tales. He connected with Mike's sincere excitement and his profound regard for the past. The Professor continued, "I'm not just selling these things, Mike," in a quiet voice. "I'm giving 'em up to you. I hope they'll be taken care of and that their tales will go on." Mike got it. "You have my word, Professor. Good homes will be found for these artworks. They will be valued." He was receiving a heritage rather than merely purchasing goods. Long, striking shadows were formed across the barn as the sun started to set later in the day. The smell of moist ground and rotting wood filled the air as it became colder. A carefully chosen assortment of artifacts that each attested to the depth of American history had been packed into the van by Mike and Robbie. Mike was filled with a deep feeling of fulfillment as he stood outside the barn, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple. It was more than simply the excitement of the discoveries. It was the sense of accomplishment at the end of a big phase of his life. With a trace of passion in his voice, Mike added, "Well, Robbie, that's a wrap." The final selection for the show. Robbie gave him a shoulder clap. "Mike, you succeeded. You choose to become a part of history." Mike grinned. He had discovered a wealth of lost tales, met innumerable interesting individuals, and traversed the nation. Millions of others have been inspired by his enthusiasm to see the world with a critical eye, to recognize the beauty in the neglected and the promise in the discarded. As the last of the sunshine disappeared, the episode's closing scenes were captured on camera. Mike addressed the camera directly as he stood next to the vehicle, its doors open to show off the day's loot. His voice was full of appreciation and a hint of regret. "It's been an incredible journey," he stated. "More than 10 years of traveling, getting to know incredible people, and discovering some very astonishing artifacts from American history. I'm really thankful for every second and every tale I've been allowed to tell." He stopped, looking out across the countryside, the silent fields extending beneath the lowering sky. "However, it's time for a fresh experience. It's time to travel new paths and pursue fresh ghosts." There was a sense of expectancy for what was ahead because he did not disclose his precise plans. However, he made references to carrying on with his selecting and disseminating his discoveries in other ways, maybe online or through his own business endeavors. He continued to live the life he loved even after leaving the program. As the titles rolled, a montage of iconic American Pickers scenes played, including Mike and Frank negotiating a narrow driveway, the thrill of finding a buried treasure, and sincere laughing with a kind hoarder. It served as a reminder of the influence the program had had and a sentimental walk down memory lane. The final episode was being polished back in the editing room. The producers wanted to give Mike a farewell fit for his legacy since they understood that this was a historic event. The show was a salute to his enthusiasm, a celebration of his path, and a look ahead. The episode's title card said, "The Professor's Legacy, a Farewell Pick." A sizable and moved crowd watched the show. Reactions were all over social media. Supporters wished Mike Wolfe well in his future pursuits, shared their favorite Mike Wolfe memories, and conveyed their regret at his leaving. They were filled with laughter, tears, and a mutual admiration for the guy who had introduced him to the world of picking. At home with his family, Mike watched the show. He witnessed the result of years of arduous labor, innumerable miles traveled, and a life devoted to the study of history. He was quite satisfied with his accomplishments and felt proud of them. Retirement from American Pickers was a shift, not a conclusion. It was an opportunity to welcome the next phase of his life, to keep teasing himself, and to learn more about the tales that had always captivated him. He wasn't only leaving a popular television program. He was leaving a legacy of the same fervor, curiosity, and unflinching commitment to the preservation of American history. Though they now lighted a new route, the dust motes continued to dance in the sunbeams. The legendary American picker Mike Wolfe had left the concert, but his picking career was far from done. His legacy was one of inspiration, discovery, and a reminder that often the most priceless treasures are the undiscovered tales. He had retired in style. You could tell there were still a ton more barns and untold tales waiting to be discovered as he gazed off into the distance with a familiar sparkle in his eye. In Mike Wolfe's universe, the wide road, the excitement of hunting, and the prospect of the next big discovery were all constants. And even after the cameras had stopped, they would still be guiding him. Mike Wolfe's portrayal of the American picker would endure as a tribute to the everlasting appeal of the past and the persistent force of inquiry. The final selection for the show marked the start of a brand new journey and a new phase in a life devoted to the skill of unearthing lost gems. The hope that Mike Wolfe was still out there, somewhere on a dusty backroad, opening barn doors and reviving history one incredible discovery at a time, lingered for those who had followed his trip. His retirement wasn't a conclusion. Rather, it was a promise of more tales to be told, more treasures to discover, and more of the contagious passion that had made him so well liked in the Americana community. For Mike Wolfe, The American picker, the path ahead was still lined with the possibility of discovery, even though the sun had set on one era and was rising on another.